Hello, everyone.
Welcome.
Welcome. Today we do have a special guest speaker. And Phil, would you like to introduce?
Yep. So, as many of you know, I was not always a history buff. This is the guy I got my history love of history from. This is my dad. You want to introduce yourself a little bit? Your background a little bit in history and that?
Well, my name is Dan. For those of you that may have never heard that before, I got a degree in history from Marquette University back in 1994. Mostly studied medieval and Renaissance Europe, so I've been brought in as a kind of a consultant for this particular episode.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm going to predicate everything here by first of all saying I'm not the leading authority on the subject. Okay, so if there is anybody that's listening that knows more about this, feel free to comment and let us know.
Yeah.
I'm just going off of what I gleaned off of notes that I looked up and information that I researched. Some of my old class notes too, actually, but there wasn't much in that. But anyway, we'll take it as it goes.
Yep.
So.
And today we'll be studying mostly cuisine on Renaissance Italy. Now, do you want to lead in with that?
Well, first of all, what I was told is that we're dealing with the Renaissance.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the Renaissance was roughly, especially the early half of the 16th century or the 1500s.
Mm-hmm.
At the same time in Italy that the Renaissance was going on in Florence and Milan and Venice, in England, you had the Tudor period with Henry VIII, Elizabeth, and all that. But the philosophy,
Queen Mary, right? Queen Mary the First too.
Bloody Mary, yeah.
Bloody Mary, yep.
The thing is, though, is that the philosophies and the art and all the learning from Italy did not migrate that far north for almost another 150 years. So there's a lot of time. So when we're dealing with the Renaissance in this particular subject matter, we're dealing with Italy. So now, my understanding is that we're dealing with the culinary aspects of mostly the peasantry,
mm-hmm.
so the lower classes of society. There's going to be a lot of commonality to that between Italy and England and everywhere in between, just because of the fact that people of limited means had very limited means, and they can only use what they had available to them. And in many cases, there was a lot of commonality there, a lot of grains, some vegetables.
Popular, right?
Bread was the number one staple
mm-hmm.
in all of Europe, from England and Scotland all the way down to the tip of Italy. Mm-hmm. Bread is the number one staple, usually made with rye, barleys. Usually some sort of a dark rye was a very common thing.
Okay, so this may be, if you're studying Germany at the time, this may be a time where they developed like things like pumpernickel in that too, perhaps.
If it hadn't already been developed, yeah. This would have been the time that they would have been doing that. Like I said, bread was the number one staple.
How did the Italians have a lot of like dark?
They made do with whatever they could.
Yeah.
Okay. And it varies by region. It varies by geography. If you're,
I guess more of the Alpine regions would have more darker stuff. Because that's what can be grown there.
It depends on what's grown, exactly. And Italian cooking, especially for the peasants, was based on simplicity, frugality, and resourcefulness.
Mm-hmm.
You had to make use of everything you had, make use of all of it. You didn't waste anything.
Right.
And you just, very simple dishes,
mm-hmm.
some of which we even still have today in our modern Italian cooking. We'll get to that later on.
Yeah. That'd be interesting to know what came from
Yeah.
Like, I know you know a few of them, and you probably had a few of them. So
yeah.
Most of us have.
So where would you like to start?
Well, I mean, we're talking about the peasants.
Mm-hmm.
So we're talking about lowest class of society, unskilled labor,
mm-hmm.
people that are living a subsistence living. So what they make, they use. What they make, they consume. They don't have anything extra for any kind of
uses for later, right? Did they ever?
They did have to have preservation. I mean,
Yeah.
food when it was available, they harvested it, made use of what they could, and whatever was left, they had to preserve it. Salting, especially for meats, was very popular, along with some smoking, drying out also.
Okay.
So-
How do they usually dry it out?
Usually,
Smoking.
well, smoking was common with meats.
Mhm.
You would dry out vegetables, for
Kind of
example.
the same way.
Not necessarily. A lot of times it was just left in the sun to
Ah,
evaporate the juices
Okay.
up, and then it would be just kind of ground into a powder or something a lot of times, and then used in later cooking.
Okay, so this would maybe like a dried oregano or something like that.
Oregano, tomatoes also.
Oh, it's like a dried tomato. Yeah.
Mhm, yeah, and I mean they didn't have, like I said, they didn't have a rich variety of what was there, but what they used a lot of, and they used it well. Beans, legumes, onions.
Oh yeah, I can imagine onions would be very popular, especially kind of.
mhm.
You can maybe use it to bathe with as well, kind of conceal some of the stench as well.
They wouldn't have thought about doing that.
Well, if someone had thought
If
about it,
bathing was even a consideration, I
Right.
mean, you're talking about people that had no concept of germ theory. They had no idea what it was. They probably would have considered it to be witchcraft in some cases. So
that very well could be.
very, very traditional conservative thought. Bathing, really, it wasn't really
Maybe once a year.
if you were lucky. I mean, usually in the springtime, definitely get rid of that winter funk that that everybody would have. But to use onions to bathe with, no, they would never use. They would never use something that would be a food source
Okay, that would make sense.
as anything else.
Okay.
Yeah, and bathing, for the most part, the only bathing that anybody ever did was really when they were out in the fields working and if it was raining.
Yeah.
Or if they happened to fall in a river.
Well, that kind of leads into another area of topic too.
Mhm.
What do they do for water and drink?
Okay, well, water was sourced either through local streams or rivers or wells, as the case may be. It was used almost exclusively for just cooking and some cleaning. They didn't really do a lot of that. Like you said, bathing, really not thought of. But water was used a lot for cooking and stuff. As far as what people drank, it wasn't water. Water was number one, too suspect for contaminants.
Especially probably at that time.
At any time. But it's one of those things where, as the old saying goes, you never drink downstream from the herd.
Gotcha.
If you understand.
Okay.
So, if you understand that, water was never considered 100% clean and pure. We don't have a purification like we do today.
Mhm.
The only thing that they could do would be maybe boiling it, especially, but straining out what they could and then boiling it. And even then, it wasn't the greatest.
Yeah.
What most people would do is, if depending on the region that they were in, they would make usually either wines or beers.
Okay.
And by beers, usually they were heavy, like ales. They were not any kind of a light beer like we would have, like a Pilsner or anything like that today. They were ales.
Really hardy.
Really hardy stuff. And that's
A lot
because
of nutrients, I guess, too.
very nutrient intense. And then depending on where you're at, like if you're in Tuscany, wine country there, of course.
Oh, Tuscany is wonderful for wine.
Yeah.
Even today.
Exactly. And so people would make wine, just in their back room or whatever if they had one. So, it would be just used and drank right then and there.
Mhm.
But that's what they had.
Mhm.
So, water, if it was collected, it was collected in small cisterns if it ran off the roof or something like that.
Mhm.
Again, that was probably the most pure water was probably rainwater, if you could collect it. But not everybody had the means to do that.
Right. Or did not have the knowledge to do so as well.
Or both.
Yeah.
So the knowledge came with practice, but I mean we're talking about the very lowest levels of society, unskilled labor, basically uneducated.
Mhm.
They understood the seasons, they understood, how nature worked.
Mhm.
But as far as anything more than that, They wouldn't have been.
Nope.
So these are people that lived in a simple one-room home.
And what was the home?
It was a little hovel. I mean, a little one-room, maybe 10 by 10 hut. You slept on the floor next to the fireplace that you cooked on, whatever. If you had any kind of sense of sanitation, you maybe have a small ditch out in the backyard to use for anything like that.
So
The floors would have been dirt floors with straw. So, I mean, it's what little bit of insulation. I mean, if you were lucky, you might have had, the cat or the dog laying in the house with you, and that. But that's it. Furniture was whatever you could make by hand. So I mean, it wasn't anything sophisticated. It was all rudimentary. I mean, if you had a stump to sit on, that's what you used.
Yep.
So it was very, very basic, not very well insulated.
Drafty, I would guess.
Very drafty. And very damp too, especially in the rainy season.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
So it's basically a very experience-based education system for this type of people we're talking about.
Yeah. So, I mean, but again, your peasants had a very limited diet.
Mm-hmm.
It was full of nutrients. It was a lot of what we would consider unrefined foods, but just very basic. I mean, like I said before, bread was your number one staple. The other thing that you would have had would have been a thing called, in England, it was called pottage.
Okay.
But it was basically a soup or a stew made from whatever food scraps were left, whatever vegetables you could grow, and maybe throw in an egg if you could get it. Most people had chickens, so you can get an egg every day. Throw that in.
We were actually talking about chickens before we came on here.
Oh.
And we didn't know that, I at least didn't know that the peasant folk had chickens.
Yeah.
So.
That was a common animal that a lot of them had. They wouldn't have had a lot of larger animals like horses or anything unless they had to plow a field or something. And many times that was more or less communal.
Mm-hmm.
So, but if you were wealthy enough to have your own horse, hey, great. But,
More power to you.
More power to you. Some of them did keep pigs, although they were used not necessarily as a food source per se. Many had pigs, couldn't afford to slaughter them to feed themselves. They were used mostly to just forage, refuse, refuse use in that. If you were lucky enough that you could afford to slaughter a pig and live off of the animal, well, hey, you were doing good. But that was a rarity. Most of the time, the animals were kept alive for other uses.
Of course, yeah.
So, meats, peasants did not eat meat. They couldn't afford it.
Right.
Meats were very expensive, especially your larger animals like deer, boar. Those, number one, were highly prized by the aristocracy, by the royals. The upper levels of society valued those very much. So if you were caught killing a deer or a boar or something, especially if you were on considered the lord's estate, you could get into a lot of trouble for that. In many cases, it was considered punishable by death. So you had to be very careful with that. Even just hunting rabbits. You figure rabbits, there's a million of them around, but again, the lords wanted the rabbits for themselves a lot of times. So, I mean, if you could get one, pretty easy to conceal a small rabbit, but you pray you didn't get caught with it.
Yeah.
So, the one thing that they could get if they were near the coast and near the rivers was fish.
A lot of fish.
A lot of fish. And if you were in the areas that you were able to, like I said, the river courses near the coasts, fish was a very abundant thing. So those areas did well for getting meats from fish.
Mm-hmm.
Inland, though, it was a lot harder. And like I said, if you were fortunate to be able to get a small animal of some type, hey, great. But it really was not a common thing, though. Most of their time when they got their protein, it would have been through things like beans and stuff like that.
Okay.
What we would consider today basically a vegetarian diet or a vegan diet. So, and the thing is, though, is that for the peasantry, they had to have meals that were hearty, that were full of nutrients, because they were working in the fields the whole day.
Mhm.
And farming back then, of course, was not, you didn't drive a tractor around or you had to do this all by hand.
Did he
Yeah.
have with the
If you were lucky, you had a plow and a horse. But in many cases, you had to do it by yourself by hand. And
sickle a lot of times?
sickle for harvesting, or whatever, small shovel or something to,
Mhm.
tend to the fields and that. But it was a very hard way of life.
Mhm.
So the meals had to be nutritious, they had to be hearty, but they had to sustain. So,
You
but
have
it
to
was
make do with what
it
you
was
can,
not
right?
it was not no. You had to make do with what you had,
Mhm.
and that was the whole thing. Especially with the peasants, if there was a bad harvest,
Mm.
if there was any kind of a problem, you had to make do. Sometimes going without, and it could be very, very difficult. That's why.
Were there a lot of cases of, like, many cases of starvation?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it would follow one season. You'd have a bad harvest. You'd have starvation in the area the next year.
Mhm.
Especially if your grains went bad. If you couldn't get your grains in.
Mm.
Grain was the one thing that they could store over long term without having to do very much other than just keep it dry
Right.
and just keep the mice out of it when they could.
Mm.
But if you couldn't keep your grain dry, you could not make beer, you could not make bread. Those are your two staples.
Pretty much, yeah.
And I mean, if you cannot make bread, that was the main thing that everybody needed.
Yeah.
That was the one thing they needed. It was as basic as it gets. That was their number one staple. If they couldn't make bread, they'd starve.
Okay.
So starvation was a very common thing.
Now, did they have any bad famines or anything like that?
Same thing. Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
Like regional famines or
Oh, yeah.
something?
Yeah, I mean, regionally, yeah. I mean, if you had a bad drought in one area, or maybe maybe a bad storm in another one that wiped out the crops or whatever, yeah, you'd have starvation. You'd have, sometimes maybe not necessarily starvation, but the onset of disease because certain nutrients were not in the food source, or, I mean,
What would be like one associated with that? Like
Disease?
dysentery or something like that?
well, dysentery would be mostly through like waterborne diseases and stuff like
okay.
that. But the one that most people don't associate is there were some bad harvests and stuff that happened in the early to mid 1300s, and Genoese sailors would go out in ever increasing areas to look for food sources, going to especially Asia Minor and what we would consider the Near East. And one of the things they brought back with them, besides more food,
Plague.
was the Black Death. The plague.
The Genoese sailors.
Genoese sailors were the ones that brought it into Europe.
Oof.
So that was all predicated because they needed to go out and find more food sources because of whatever. Yeah, what was the cause of whatever the famine or pestilence was. They needed to go out and find more food sources and more trade sources to be able to get that. And that's what developed with Black Death eventually coming to Europe. Another story for another time.
We'll get into
I'll go into that one in further detail. Okay, back to food though.
Yeah.
But
it just kind of goes to also show how communal food is.
Mhm.
Like if something goes wrong, it can affect an entire system.
Not just one household, not just one small. I mean, it could affect the entire village.
I think that's
maybe the entire region.
I think that's an important lesson. Well, when people go hungry, everyone is affected.
Mm-hmm. And the other thing is with Italians, Italian peasant cooking and peasant life was very communal.
Mm-hmm.
All of their meals, in many cases, especially dinner, were held on a communal level.
Mm-hmm.
So they would get into the village square, or if it's bad weather, a village hall, and have a large communal dinner. So it wasn't just within their own household.
So do movies sometimes portray that very well, like the communal dinner and stuff like that?
Of all the movies that I can recall, the one that I remember with that, believe it or not, was the movie The Big Red One.
Huh.
When the American unit was in Italy or Sicily, one of the two, I forget which, the entire village turned out and made dinner for this group of American soldiers for liberating them from the Germans.
So community is a
Community is a huge thing.
It's built around food in Italy.
And vice versa.
Yeah. Food is community.
Food is community. Community is food. I mean, it's a very social atmosphere.
Oh,
So I mean,
that's wonderful.
yeah, and there's some cases where you could see it when they brought it over here too, but especially over there
Mhm.
in the more traditional villages and stuff like that, you'll still find it.
Oh yeah.
Mhm.
Like,
So
I can imagine some Tuscan villages, especially.
Mhm.
I mean, I know they do a lot of good. I mean, this is another topic for another time,
Yeah.
but they do live action nativities as well,
yes,
which is from that time too.
hmm yeah, that was a way of
Educating.
visibly educating people on the religious principles that they were trying to portray.
Okay.
Anyway, back to food, the peasants. So, like I said, most of their diet was very simple. The only thing that would be considered like sweet,
Mhm.
they didn't have confectionaries like we do here, or the candies and stuff like that. They would gather berries
Mhm.
and nuts, maybe find a honeycomb from a beehive that they would be able to collect out in the woods and in the fields, and bring that back. There wasn't anything that was necessarily made
Like sugar cane.
like sugar cane or anything like that. No, that's a much later development. Once, especially, the New World was getting settled because you had the sugar cane fields in the Caribbean and that.
Mhm.
But for what they had there, they just collected what they can in the woods.
From what I can recall, sugar was very, very expensive at that time.
Extremely. It was a very rare commodity. That's why only the royals and the upper classes could get it.
Same with a lot of expensive spices that
Mhm.
we consider,
We consider them every day now.
but you're talking things like
Paprika.
cinnamon was
Pep-
huge.
Cinnamon, paprika.
Cinnamon was possibly even more expensive than sugar. Possibly.
I'd have to look it up, but yeah, it's.
I mean,
pretty
you had to
close.
travel halfway around the globe in order to
Yeah,
get
pretty
cinnamon.
So yeah, but I mean, but for typical Italian peasants,
Mhm.
like I said,
Honeycomb.
very simple. Their mornings, their breakfast would usually start with a very simple breakfast: bread and cheese, maybe some kind of porridge.
What
Very
is-
simple.
For those who do not know what porridge is, it's basically almost like an oatmeal.
Kind of like a runny oatmeal. Yeah. Made with whatever grains they had available.
And usually boiled with water, right?
Mhm, yep. Not very flavorful. If you've ever had plain oatmeal or
It's
like cream of wheat, it's not very flavorful. They didn't have any really way of sweetening it unless they happened to get like some sugar or not sugar, honey. But that was a rarity. Most of the time, they just ate it plain.
now for us Americans out here.
Mm.
Would it be similar taste-wise to something like grits or something like that? Kind of similar? In terms of,
Flavor, maybe. Texture, I don't know. I guess depends on how it's made.
yeah. Okay, so it'd be similar to grits. Kind of.
Kinda,
Yeah.
I guess. Yeah, or like cream of wheat or something like that.
Yeah, okay.
I'd have to do some side by side comparisons. I've heard it compared to
Grits.
basically like grits or cream of wheat, or like
Okay.
grits tend to be a little bit more firm.
Yeah,
I
because
think-
of the corn.
Yeah. So, but they never had corn over there, so it would be all whatever grain that they had.
Right.
Wheat, rye, barley.
Barley was pretty huge, I'm pretty
Barley,
sure.
yeah. So whatever they couldn't use for bread, they used for beer. If they didn't use it for beer, they used it for porridge in the morning. Very basic, simple diet. You know, if they could,
Nutritious.
very nutritious. Yeah, I mean, it was not refined at all. I mean, it was very straightforward. I mean, it's like us here going off into a field in the summertime, picking an ear of corn and eating it right then and there, and not
even boiling it.
not even boiling, or picking a tomato off the vine and eating it.
Hey, that actually is not bad.
It's good eating.
It's good
It's
eating.
very nutritious. You know, it's not processed at all. I mean, the most processing that anything would have would be they get the
Salt.
grains and grind it down to a fine flour.
Okay.
You know,
Would they do that themselves, or would that be at like a community mill or something?
yes,
Both.
a little. Yeah,
Okay.
depends on what you're doing.
Okay.
If you had a lot to do, you'd bring it down to the mill. If you had just a small batch,
You do it
you
yourself.
could probably do it yourself. Or a lot of times, if they bring it down to the mill, they get enough to do whatever. You know, they'd be enough to make bread to do whatever they needed.
Right. Right.
Usually for at least a good week or two, or not more,
And if they did it themselves, you would probably just do what, mortar and pestle, I'm guessing.
something like that.
Okay.
So, so I mean, it was cooking was very basic. It was all basic. Mostly, a lot of it was stew.
A lot of your community dinners, I'm pretty sure, were stews.
Stews. Well, that's also because that's all that they had, and it was the best way to make it go as far as they could.
Yeah.
And
And make a lot of it.
make a lot of it. Now, I mean, they could saute it, they could roast it, they could do whatever. But again, they did not have meats to be able to do that with, like the aristocracy did.
Mhm.
You know, the kings and the princes and the merchants, they could afford or pork or beef or whatever, and be able to roast it on a spit
Mhm.
and put all sorts of nice spices in that. And they had some very good cooking there. Peasants didn't have that kind of opportunity, so they needed to use what they had.
And do they have any dairy products at all, or is that
Like nope.
cheeses?
Cheese was probably the single biggest thing. Regional cheeses, of course, whatever we consider Italian cheeses like Parmesan or Asiago,
Pantina.
whatever the local would be, they would make that, of course.
That's just a way to preserve it as
It
well.
was also a way of preserving to an extent, as long as it didn't go moldy.
Yeah.
But I mean, the concept of using cow's milk as a drink or as something to feed children was not developed until much, much later.
Pasteurization.
Louis Pasteur in the early 20th century, but I suppose a peasant out there in the field, if they had to, if they were desperate,
Would do it.
would maybe do it, but it would not be common knowledge. Not like
Yeah, but
something that would be done.
But one question: where would they get the cow?
If they had one available in the local community, it wasn't normal. I mean, your merchants, your upper classes would have them mostly, but occasionally maybe a large village would have one. It
Might
would
be a community cow.
Yeah, kind of. Something like that.
It'd be
Kind of.
community cow, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah. I mean, it wasn't as common, like I said, so. Yeah. So, I mean, again, it was based on resourcefulness and frugality, mostly.
Mhm. So whatever you could use, you used.
You used everything as much as you could. Yep.
Okay. What else is pretty common at that time? Anything else you want to?
Well, I mean, like, for example, there are some things that started, I guess, around that time that we still have today. Pasta fagioli,
Ooh,
Which-
pasta fagioli.
which is, of course, pasta with beans, soup.
Mhm.
Yeah. If you go to any Italian restaurant, if they don't have that on the menu, there's a problem.
Yeah.
Polenta is another one, a nice porridge.
Yeah.
They would be
That would probably be close to a grits. I would
Yeah,
guess.
yeah. It was designed to be nourishing and filling.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, because especially if you're working in the field all day, you need
A lot of
need-
nutrients.
you need a lot of nutrients. So, but yeah, I mean, that was really about it. I mean, the diet was very simple,
Is
but
there
very,
any
but
other-
very nutritious. But they did not have heart disease like we have today. They didn't have cancers like we have today. They didn't have a lot of the health issues that we have today because of that simple diet and the fact that they were working in the fields all day.
So burning
Now-
it mostly off.
They were burning it off, and it wasn't so overprocessed that it would be harmful. So,
Do you think that perhaps overprocessing things has an effect on people's health?
no, yes, absolutely.
Hmm.
I mean, I would be hard pressed to say that it doesn't, because I mean, ask any
And
doctor.
also the oversugaring of things too.
Ask any doctor that's worth their degree if they should be eating processed meats, processed whatever. And they will, if they're worth their degree, they'll say, no, absolutely not. You know, yeah, you want it cooked, but you don't want it overly processed. Like, for example, lunch meats.
Mhm.
We tend to eat a lot of that because
Sulfites.
because of the sulfites, the preservatives, and the other stuff they put in there. Yeah, my own opinion personally is that if I can't pronounce whatever it is, I don't want to eat it.
That's fair.
I mean, but on the other hand, I understand, especially to extend the food source for everybody when you have to feed how many people are in the United States? 340 million people.
Mhm.
You have to
Yep.
feed that many people. You got to make it go as far as it can.
Yeah.
But on the
It
other
may,
side,
it may reach a little bit.
well, I mean, the stratification of society is there today too. You got the upper classes with industry leaders and stuff like that. They can have steaks every night or whatever they want, and yet you got people that are the poorest of society that are eating whatever scraps they can find.
Yeah.
Basically, it's the same thing. It's
Yeah.
just a different locality,
and
but it's
different-
it's the principle is the same thing.
Absolutely. Mhm.
So, hey, bud.
This is a Cecil, everyone.
Yes, this is our big boy. He's going to help. You're going to help? Okay. You're wondering what I'm doing, aren't you? Yes.
Yes. But that kind of is interesting because it's simple, but it's not overly processed to the point where it damages you physically.
Right.
You know, I find that very interesting.
Yeah.
You did not hear. What's interesting is that you did not hear about heart disease and cancer and stuff like that. Not until pretty much until the widespread of sugar, pretty much.
That and processing and canning, which started in the mid 1800s.
Mhm. Victorian time.
Yeah, the Victorian era. That was when you started to hear about more and more of these diseases. Heart disease may or may not have been around possibly for a long time, but we don't know. I mean,
It's hard to tell.
the doctors at that point did not have the medical knowledge like they do today, so
It's hard to tell.
it's hard to say.
Now, the peasants, because they could not obviously afford a doctor,
Mhm. A lot of it were home cures, home remedies.
apothecaries, I'm guessing.
Apothecaries, but a lot of it was home remedies,
Yeah.
home cures. So you were sick, your wife would make you some sort of a tea that,
Or tincture.
or a tincture or something that would calm that down or do whatever. It was a lot of trial and error. Actually, just like doctors do today, they give you prescriptions based on whatever it is. And will it cure you? We don't know. It might make you feel better. It may kill you. That's what the side effects are all about. You know,
Yeah, side effects.
Well,
side effects may include death. We don't know if it'll kill you or not, but let's try it. If,
Yeah,
I
I
feel-
know about that.
if
I
you
know.
get from the disease, but you just don't have any other thing to do.
What was that, Jay?
Sorry.
Yeah, I know a lot about that.
Yeah,
So, I mean,
that's just kind of interesting that, you know, well, obviously, I mean, we also do not have good records of the peasantry.
no, that is true.
Unfortunately, they did not know how to write or anything. So how do we
Well-
know about them?
Well, most of it was written down through people that were hired by the aristocracy to go out and see about various issues or whatever, talk to them. They might be tax collectors. They could also be priests too. Priests a lot of times were the most educated person in the village. They might have maybe not been the most educated compared to today, but they could at least rudimentarily read and write because they had to be able to read the Bible to interpret it for the rest of the
masses,
people.
yeah.
Right. That said, you know, I mean, are they as educated as we are today? No,
Who knows?
not
Probably not.
Probably not. I mean, they were, like I said, they could basically read, basically write. Now, priests, though, especially in Italy, would have also understood Latin. That was a very common language back then. It was not put into, nothing was translated into Italian for many hundreds of years later.
Now, what was the primary language at that time for the peasant folk?
What we would consider a rudimentary Italian.
So it's a.
It would be Italian. They would not speak in Latin. That Latin was for educated people, the higher classes, and especially for international commerce. That's how they did business.
It's interesting because.
But the normal people would speak Italian, some version or dialect of it, like today, and some people would be able to translate between the two. Usually they would be the priests because they would have to. But I mean, for the peasants though, they wouldn't know even how to read and write.
No.
So
No. Interesting though. That's because at the time we're talking about in the 1500s, even England, both the two main languages of England at the time, at least of the upper classes, were Latin and French.
Yeah.
English, as we know it today, was the poor. Was the language of the poor.
Although the kings,
the Anglo-Saxon,
the kings in that
dialect.
still had to understand English to be able to rule
Speak
the
with
country.
Yeah. But
So French was used only because there was so much going on with France, between England and France. They had to understand some of it. But there are stories of like French. Who's it? Catherine of Valois, who was the wife of Henry V, I believe. When she came over from France, she didn't understand a lick of anything that was being said at court. Didn't understand a word of it. It took her a while to figure it out, but she spoke French primarily. So on the other side of it, you had Mary Queen of Scots in the
Scots Gaelic, right?
Scots Gaelic, but she was raised in France.
So she was.
She was raised in France. She was raised at the French court, and became wife of Louis. I forget his number. But anyway, her husband, the French king, died, and then she went back home to take over her throne in Scotland, and the rest of her story goes from there. So
interesting.
Mary was a bit messed up, but that's another story for another day.
Another story for another day.
Yeah. I can go into her for weeks.
Yep. She's a fascinating character, for sure.
Oh, yeah.
Now, obviously, a lot of people in Italy at this time were also primarily Catholic.
Yes.
Roman Catholicism was huge at this time. Now, is this around the time of the Luther Reformation?
Protestant Reformation. You're
That's later.
a little bit later, maybe around, I think.
1575.
No, earlier than that, 15. Anyway, later 1500s.
Yeah.
But the Renaissance, as we know it, began around 1500, give or take
Now,
a couple years.
Who are some significant people of the Renaissance that we know today? Like
Leonardo da Vinci,
Michelangelo,
Donatello,
Oh my gosh.
Raphael.
It's
all the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Yep.
Sorry.
But they're all artists, right?
Bernini.
Yeah.
They're all artists, correct?
Most of them were artists. A lot of them were also philosophers.
Da Vinci, especially.
Da Vinci, especially, along with Leonardo.
Mhm.
Leonardo da Vinci.
Done.
Michelangelo, I mean,
Yeah.
was also a bit of a philosopher. Not as Da Vinci is probably the single best known source of all this.
Oh, yeah.
But
Now,
Yeah.
were there any success stories like going from? Do we ever hear of any people going from the poorer classes
not very normal.
to?
It was a long progression, maybe not necessarily within your lifetime, but let's say you had a son who was particularly gifted or something. He began to learn a trade. He began to learn how to do things.
Skilled labor.
Skilled labor. So he was a step up from you.
Mhm.
His son took that skilled labor and now was able to market it and to sell it abroad. He became a merchant.
Mm.
And as he would move up, well, not necessarily move up, he would earn money as a merchant and be able to then, oh, well, guess what? That noble family's daughter, that noble family is starving there because they're losing money. They don't, because the aristocracy didn't work.
Right.
They were ruling by more or less divine right at that point. But most people would not necessarily think that. So it's like, okay, so now the merchant class especially was getting a lot of money. These are the merchants, the bankers.
Mhm.
These are like the Medici family in Florence. They're getting huge amounts of wealth, but now they need to get into that upper tier,
Mhm.
the aristocracy, the royalty. So they marry into those families.
Mm.
It's not necessarily that they earned their way up there; they bought their way into it
Pretty
if
much.
they could do it. But they can't buy their way into it until
They have the skills.
they're skilled and whatever. So what would have begun in one generation would not end probably for at least another 5 or 6 or more generations up.
Okay.
Okay,
So
certainly
that's
not.
how
That's how you
Right.
can move up, but it's a long,
long.
difficult, and hard process.
Yeah.
And most people did not.
Right.
If you were fortunate to be able to move up, you were one in a million,
Mhm.
literally. It was that rare.
Hmm.
But usually, if you were born a peasant, you were a peasant for life.
Hmm.
You would learn from the people around you and learn from nature to understand the seasonal cycles and how things work, how to do things practically.
Mhm.
Anything that was philosophical or whatever was beyond your comprehension. So, you would go to church on Sunday as a dutiful Catholic, and you would hear the sermons and whatever. Would you understand it?
Maybe.
Maybe not. Most of the masses were in Latin. So if you understood Latin a little bit, you could be okay. But for the most part, you didn't understand anything of what was going on until the priest came to do the sermon.
Right. And he translated it.
And he
for you.
translated. And then, like, for example, if you're in Catholic tradition, they elevate the host and the chalice and everything. They would usually ring a bell or something to let you know that, oh, something's going on.
Yeah.
And pay attention.
Hmm.
But that's it. You didn't understand a word of what they were saying with the chants or the songs or the readings or anything else.
Right. Right.
So,
Okay.
I mean, if you were fortunate enough that you could get any kind of an education,
Hmm.
you used every bit of it to your advantage.
Yeah. Okay. So that's actually interesting that how society is still somewhat reflected like that.
Yeah.
If you're in one situation, it seems like you're stuck there. You have the means to get out, but
But you have to make a lot of it's luck.
Yeah.
To be fair, a lot of it was luck.
still
if
is
you-
today.
Yeah. I mean, as educated as we are here, especially in this country, it's still a matter of luck to get to that next level.
Absolutely.
You need the right circumstances, the right backing, the right, help.
Mhm.
And to be honest with you, you still have to break your neck to do it a lot
Yeah.
of times.
It's not given to you on a silver platter.
No.
More often than not.
Yeah.
There are some people who are
Yeah,
exceptions.
I'm
We're
going
not
to
gonna go there,
I'm going to
but-
keep up with that one. Okay. So,
But that's interesting.
Yeah. any more on food here that we can talk about?
Any questions on food?
No, but
Good.
it was very interesting.
Now the communion wafers were crackers. correct? Made of grains from the local area.
Well, yeah, they're unleavened bread. So there was never yeast used in it. In the traditional host of Catholic church use.
Okay.
They could use regular bread too. I've seen it done. So I mean, a lot of it depends on what the church was able to do. If the church had the means to be able to do something, they did it. But you know, outside of Vatican City and the large cathedrals, your community churches were very small, very quaint little places. Didn't have a lot of money to be able to do much. I mean, they tried what they could to help people.
Now that one chapel at your old university there
Mm-hmm.
was about the size of a typical medieval structure, correct? Your a small village chapel.
It was
Chapel,
actually just a little bit larger than our living room here.
So
Maybe 20 by
yeah.
10,
So
20 by 15.
maybe
It was not
at the
big.
most
You could-
20 people.
Well, I was actually in there for masses on Wednesday nights at times. They could fit 100 in there, shoulder to shoulder, standing up.
That'd be like packed like a can of sardines though.
It was.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's an experience for sure.
Yeah, if you're ever in Milwaukee and you go to Marquette University, check out the St. Joan of Arc Chapel. It is well worth the time. So,
Now, what is significant about St. Joan of Arc Chapel?
Simple history. St. Joan of Arc Chapel was a chapel in Léon, France. The legend goes that before Joan of Arc, St. Joan of Arc rode out to face the English, she prayed in that chapel for victory and success against them. And those that know their history know that she won a tremendous battle afterwards. Now today, the chapel has been brought over from Léon to Milwaukee. It was rebuilt stone by stone, brick by brick. Everything that was inside that chapel is there today, at least on the interior.
And it's the only medieval structure in North America.
It's the only authentic medieval structure in North America. So it was built. It was built in the, I want to say the 1200s.
Wow.
Maybe the 1100s. I don't remember off the top of my head, but it's well worth it if you ever get a chance to check it out.
Quite a unique place.
Mm-hmm.
And that was his university there. So
yeah, I didn't go there every day. I went past it every day, but I didn't go there every day. So.
But it is even just to look at is.
Oh yeah, it's a special place.
Now, when this is released, we will be experiencing many medieval places.
Yeah.
We will be actually on our way back when this is released.
20th?
The 20th.
Okay.
So, but we will be the first time when we went overseas. I went overseas rather. We stepped inside the local community hall, what they call the Guild Hall.
Mm-hmm.
It's the oldest structure in that county that we were in, outside of the cathedral.
Mm-hmm.
And he takes one look at me and goes, kind of shocking, isn't it? To be in a medieval, because I told him I'd never been inside of a medieval building before.
Yeah.
I'd never been inside even Joan of Arc. I've been outside of it, touched the walls and stuff of St. Joan of Arc to tour the campus of Marquette, but I'd never been inside of it.
Yeah.
But to actually be inside of a place like that, truly something else, I must say.
And it predates Columbus's expedition by what?
200 years, at least.
At least 200 years, yeah.
I mean, the cornerstone of that building was laid in 1275.
Mm-hmm.
That's 200 years before Columbus.
Yep.
And that's like
it's staggering to think about.
It's something our American brains just cannot fathom, because everything is so relatively new here.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what's amazing about this stuff too, is that how much it translates to
Mhm.
living within your means.
Mhm.
The food, the community, everything. Everything.
It's all built on what has happened in the past. Some variation,
Mhm.
and those variations over the years have gone to be stylistic changes more than anything else. But the basics are still the same.
The moral principality of it.
You know,
Yeah.
that, but like I was saying, there's some foods today that are still
Sure.
prevalent that were started as Italian peasant cooking. Pasta fagioli being one of them, polenta. And another one that I'm sure everybody knows began near Naples.
Napoleonic pizza.
Pizza. Exactly. It's-
Neapolitan. I'm sorry, Neapolitan.
Yep, Neapolitan. But the point is though, is that the basics of it were at that time. And we've just improved on it and made variations on it to be what it is today.
Oh my God. Just thinking about making my mouth water. You
You still got dinner to eat.
I still got dinner to eat, but I mean, an authentic Neapolitan margarita pizza
Mhm.
is probably from that time because it's only 3 ingredients.
Basically.
It's well, the only one that would be a little bit more expensive would be the olive oil, which is to cover the dough.
Mm.
But
Yeah.
you get dough, tomato,
Mhm.
a community mozzarella cheese
Mozzarella
from
cheese, a little bit of basil and
and a
oregano.
little bit of basil.
Yeah, a little bit of basil and some oregano.
Oregano in the dough usually,
That's it.
and
That's-
basil leaves,
That's the basics of
and
early
that's
pizzas.
what I love. It whenever I go to a pizza place, if they have a margarita pizza, I want to see how they do it
Mm.
because if they can't do the basics right, they can't do anything.
Mm. And then
It's a very fundamental principle whenever you're going to a place. If you can't do the basics right,
Yeah.
don't try it.
exactly. So
So
I was going to say on another level, we were talking about the Guildhall in Leicester there a minute ago. Remember what they were saying about in the cathedral? There are stones in the cathedral that were laid by the Romans.
mhm. Yeah, I mean that's around the time of Jesus probably, or no,
Now, a
later,
little bit after, maybe about a century or two later, but still,
200.
laid by the Romans. It's staggering to think about that.
Yeah, and the main wall in Leicester was the northernmost wall of the Roman conquest of the British Isles, or at least was
You're
one
talking,
of the.
about, you're talking about Hadrian's Wall, right?
Yeah.
No, that's further north. That was the border between Ireland, England, and Scotland.
Well,
That's
the
that's
Savage
that's
Scots.
that's north. That's
No,
further
the
north.
Savage Scots,
They were.
brutal people.
Anyway, another
Anyway.
story, another time.
We'll get into that,
Yeah,
but it's fascinating how community is based around food a lot,
Yeah.
and how society is based around food as well.
exactly. All of our
If you can't feed your masses, society will not function.
and all of our traditions, all of our major holidays have some sort of food involved. Christmas,
Oh yeah,
Thanksgiving, 4th of July, Easter. They all have some sort of food component to it.
I could even go back to pagan times too.
Yeah, definitely. You'd have a roast pig over on the side over there while you're doing chants in the forest over there. So, I mean, there's always anything communal is going to have a food element to it. And
that's-
community, food is community, community is food. And that is the very simplest way of putting it.
Absolutely.
And
There's a lot you, can
you
learn
feed
with
each
one
other. You feed each other both physically and
spiritually.
mentally and spiritually.
Mhm. And that's what I love to do with like community. In here in America, we don't necessarily have like big suppers or anything like that, but we do have social gatherings around food.
Mhm.
One of the ones I like to go to oftentimes is a pancake breakfast.
Mhm.
It's oftentimes on a weekend, usually held by veterans or VFWs or firehouses or something like that.
Or scout troops.
Or scout troops.
Yeah.
But it's a way to connect with the community. It's kind of like, and this is a topic for another time, but where we're going in a week or two, in 1 week from today, we'll be in Ireland. And there's a kind of an unwritten rules about pub culture, because it was the community meeting house. It was a way to communicate and discuss business and the politics of the community with a glass of beer. There are certain rules that, and this is for another time, but there are certain rules around that decorum.
Mm-hmm.
This is a public meeting house. You do not do certain things.
Right.
And that's what I love being in a pub better than a bar, club, anything like that, because it's oftentimes, it just suits my needs a lot better.
Most people confuse pub and bar nowadays, though, especially here.
Especially here, but if you go
If you go overseas, it's a bit different. So.
There's a huge difference between a bar and a pub. But even here, there's a couple towns just to the west of us, or east of us. One is Aurora, Illinois. They have an Irish pub there, but the one that I think is the best in the area is in St. Charles, Illinois, called McAnally's. Mm-hmm. It's an authentic Irish pub.
It's like that you can get in this area.
And he runs that place like it's an authentic Irish pub.
Mm-hmm.
You cause any mischief, he'll kick you out. He doesn't care.
Yep.
He's been known to kick people out if you cause mischief.
Mm-hmm. Which is what it should be.
Yeah.
Put them on the street if they want to argue. Yep.
Yep. You want to cause a fight? There's a bar right across the street. This is not a bar. This is a pub.
Yep. Exactly.
So, but that's kind of interesting how different cultures build around food.
Yeah. I would say every culture, from the old world to here to the new, there's a food element in everything.
Fascinating.
It has to be. How many of you go to a 4th of July cookout? Somebody's got barbecue, hot dogs, and
It can't be July without a cookout.
exactly. You got hot dogs and burgers and maybe on the grill or whatever.
Well, I mean, Jay, you're Korean, right?
Yep. But
You're I'm pretty sure there's traditions within your family that we don't know about in ours.
yeah, there is. And we always have food
Exactly.
at those things too. So
Oh yeah, and I mean, I give a lot of respect to Koreans as well. They're very, very similar to a lot of the heritages in my family. So they're very similar to the Irish and the Polish in that regard. Basically,
Really?
building a society out of oppression, basically.
yeah,
You guys did not have your own country. You guys did not have your own country for a long time.
yeah, we never had our own country.
Not until
The Korean War, I think.
Oh, and the Koreans. They never had their own country until the 1900s, I don't think.
I'd have to look up my history, but I think that's about right.
Yeah.
Depends on when was it the Chinese or the Japanese that?
No.
Well, I know the Japanese were kicked out, of course, after 45.
Yeah.
But I mean, it was both the Chinese, the Mongols as well.
Yeah, I think it's the Mongol, because my mom told me that.
The Chinese came in, the Japanese came in. It's been a lot of people.
Yeah.
I mean, the Koreans never really had their own culture, but they built their own culture.
Yeah, we did. Yeah.
Underneath all of that.
Yeah.
And that's what I like about it. It's kind of fascinating that they still developed a culture beneath all of that occupation.
Mhm.
Oh yeah.
That's
As most Brazilian societies will do.
yeah, and that's I love Korean food too. It's
Mhm.
delicious.
Oh yeah, I do too.
Korean barbecue, especially, is good.
Your mom owns a place out in California,
Yeah.
there, right?
Yeah, but it's not a Korean restaurant.
Oh, it's not.
It's an American cafe.
Oh, okay,
All right.
okay. I thought it was a Korean place.
No.
I thought it was okay, but still, I mean, even he can relate to food being a part of everything. Yeah.
How
Yeah,
many
food is everything.
over here that there's some kind of a food element? I mean, Thanksgiving's the biggest one.
Oh my gosh, yes.
You know, we just got done with that. We got 4th of July. We got Easter, Christmas. All of them have some sort of food element. Even for a lot of people, New Year's Eve. You know, New Year's Eve celebrations. You get a bunch of hors d'oeuvres and whatever, and just
Yeah.
pizza. You know, and just have that.
Yes,
So-
we do.
You know, I mean, you can make it. You can make it out of anything.
So would pasta also have come from that time too, possibly?
Pasta actually was around at that time, but it was usually used in sheets to make
Like lasagna.
like a lasagna. It was like a
Okay.
sheet pasta.
Okay.
The long individual strands, like we have for spaghetti or vermicelli or anything like that, did not exist until later because they had to do more to be able to cut it and shape it and that. But you did have the sheet
So
pasta like you would use for
there's another one as well, lasagna, possibly. A very primitive
a
form.
very primitive form because the pans that would have been used would have been a lot different.
Yeah, it would not have
Okay.
been a baking dish. It would have been.
Yeah.
It would have been like a trough, basically, almost. It would be very, very deep, I would guess.
No, not necessarily. I
But
mean,
it would not be, probably not be square either. A lot
it
of
might have.
things-
It
a
would
lot
have been
of-
square more than rectangle, I think. But most of your pans were usually what we would consider like a saute pan, or maybe like a saucepan,
Mhm.
or like a large kettle
Okay.
type thing. So I mean, it's kind of hard to make a lasagna in that, but I
It
can
could be
understand.
done.
I can understand some rudimentary basics being attempted with that.
For sure. Yeah, cool.
So.
Interesting.
Mhm.
See? Even pasta was around.
Mhm.
But again, very, very nutritious. So could not necessarily get like spaghetti or because spaghetti is such a, especially a lot of pasta flour is very, very fine.
It's very fine, yeah.
And they just did not have the means to do that at that time.
They wouldn't have wanted to take the time to do it either because they usually had to make food in time to use it
Yeah.
for as soon as possible. Any extra that they would have had, they would have stored for later when they needed it at the lean seasons around the winter and that when they didn't have a lot.
Now now obviously northern Italy like Turin or
Milan.
Milan or something like that, which is where we're going to have our Olympics in a couple months.
Yeah. Mhm.
We're going to have that in Milan, Italy. I'm pretty sure those lean seasons would have been very, very difficult in those cold climates.
Can be. Hmm.
Now, unlike, I mean, Tuscany is up in the is in a very hilly country, but it's not near as brutally cold as Torino or.
It's not up in the mountains.
No. It's, but that's interesting. Thank you for coming on.
My pleasure. And if I've ever got another subject that you want me to look into, let me know.
Oh,
Like I
thank
said,
you.
I'm not an expert, but I'm willing to consider any alternatives if anybody knows more.
We humbly admit that we're the experts.
Educated, but not perfect.
No. And that's one thing about history as well, is that we always are learning.
Yep.
And any new information that comes, we add to.
Yeah, I'm willing to revise my statements or experience at any time.
Absolutely.
Well, really, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
You guys have a,
That was a lot of
you
fun.
guys have a wonderful holiday. We'll talk to you soon.
All right, thank you. You too.
You're welcome.